Welcome everybody to another episode of Metal Freedom. I'm your host Jay Hill. Um, how's everybody doing? It's Saturday. It's a good day today. Um, got a great guest. I think this is one of his first interviews with this band Firestorm. I listened to a couple of their songs that was released, and I really liked them. I mean that they really kind of just brought me back to when I was younger, and it was just it was awesome. I mean, there's the music there is only going to get better, and so I got Truman with me. We're going to talk about the band and whatnot, but without further ado, let's get him on here. And
All
hey,
right. All right.
are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Am I getting some echo?
No, not that I can hear. I can hear you about the same.
Okay. All right. You could probably turn your phone the other way.
Yeah,
There
maybe
you
that
go.
way. Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I've done interviews in my car when my computer system was down, and yeah,
It's an
it's kind of a
interesting thought.
yeah, it's an interesting experience. I know, I get it. So, but why don't you tell people who are watching or going to be listening who you are and talk a little bit about how you guys started that band.
All right. Hi, I am Truman, the lead guitarist for Firestorm. We originally met. Well, me and Kevin, our drummer, we met back in December of 2021. We didn't actually start working together on any music until I think that was May of 2024. And
Okay.
I've got some drumming experience from previous like garage band type things, but I taught him some of what I know he's learned from other bands, Metallica, Slayer, all that stuff. Thorns, those newer thrash metal bands. Um, Thorns is actually another one of our influences also because they're mainly around our age group and a lot of it is really good. Like
Yeah.
their newer record, I think it's 60 Cycle Hum, if I remember right.
Yeah,
I
that's a
thought it was
really good
awesome
album.
when it came out.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. That's kind of on my rotation of listening to music on my phone. So yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't. I really liked the ending track. I think it was The End of the Day or something like that. But I really liked
yeah,
the
that's a good song too.
clean intro, the lyrics, the
Yep.
progression. It's like, I can't say it's immediately perfect, but it's almost there.
Right, right.
But I
Um,
mean, in music,
I mean, I mean, there's so many different bands that are the younger generation now that are like you guys that are if you guys would have started when I was young back in the '80s and
oh,
you
it
would
would
have
have been
come out with stuff
awesome.
like this, oh my gosh! I mean, that would have been like, I mean, you would have been right up there with some of the name, big bands because your guys' sound is pretty spot on.
Well, a lot of
So
it stems from a lot of, the older thrash metal, Megadeth, all that stuff. But
hmm
when I listened to it, I noticed that there could be a little bit that could be improved, because there's things that we can do now that, they didn't know about at the time. So, we can improve that type of sound with, the newer thrash metal generation, I guess you could say. But
hmm
we've been able to improve on that sound and really, I think, master it out.
right,
And I
right.
think we're getting to a point to where thrash is making its kind of, I guess, return in a more modern generation, but also still keeping that, old school perfection.
Right, right. I think I have a couple interviews coming up this week. Um,
I think I've seen a couple
with
of them. I
Kill
know.
Kiloton is um next Wednesday, and then the week I think that next Monday, so probably yeah Monday the 9th. I have Dust Bolt and a German band
Ooh.
that I have to record. Yeah, I have to record because the time difference because they're in Germany. But yeah, that'll be released that same day. But when you talk about the modern type of thrash that's coming out, it's not quite as what it what it used to be. I mean, it's more polished and more.
More,
I don't know how
you
to
know,
describe it, but
perfected.
it's got a different flavor to it.
Yeah, it really interests me because when I saw, all these other thrash metal bands out, I was in the middle of starting what Firestorm originally was, Reality of Oblivion. We were doing alternative metal at the time. But
Okay.
I think that was May of this year that I rebranded us into, or not May of this year, May of last year, that I rebranded us into Firestorm and wanted to go more of that, speed direction because I feel like I can show more of my skill that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a
Talk a
lot
little
of
bit
it is,
about your talk a little bit about your guitar playing. I'm curious. I just kind of wanted to know how you got started.
I started learning 4 years ago. I picked it up really based off of Kirk Hammett from Metallica because I saw a lot of what he did is just awesome. One,
Right.
Fade to Black, all the solos on that, Creeping Death. I mean, it was awesome. So I asked my mom if I could buy a guitar or have her buy me a guitar, and she told me I could save for it. It took me a couple of months, but I bought a little crappy, little $80 guitar from a pawn shop, and got a little crappy amp to go with it, and started playing and learning, trying to teach myself how to play. And
Mm-hmm.
as I progressed and as I listened to more of, the newer thrash metal, Metallica, and all that, and I sort of noticed the more into the harmonics and also the emotion behind what the writing is, and the
Mm-hmm.
way that those songs conveyed that type of emotion to me and how the actual song was supposed to feel. I kind of wanted to stick to that style of playing that actually gives the song some depth to a point.
Right.
Not too much to where it's just like a movie drama, but to give it enough to put the person in the perspective of the song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I started thinking like that, it just progressed and allowed me to see where my limits lie and I guess tweak some things, work on things, and it's really helped. I've noticed to, go back on my work and see what I've done and see if I can tweak it or, learn something new. But
Mm-hmm.
it it's really been an interesting journey because I've loved music all my life and I
Mm-hmm.
went from listening to heavy metal as a child to going to classical music because I was homeschooled and then into rap for a time and then the Metallica phase came in, and then I got more into it and started listening to, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, um, Exodus, stuff like that, and it really got me thinking as to what I could do with the skills that I had, and that really just led me
Right.
to attempt something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
try and at least give the world an example of what I had.
Right. Now you do realize that. I mean, listening to all those bands, like you mentioned like Anthrax and Slayer and all that, and I kind of started when I was in high school. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to do this. I wanted to be in a band, and so. But listening to that type of music and kind of getting that jump, that startup of being a musician. But
Yeah,
today's music, in that aspect of that thrash and that metal and all that, it's just it's different, but it's just the resurgence of some of these bands. I don't know if you realize there's so many different thrash bands and death metal bands, and
that
so
have
many
all
different
popped
ones
up.
that, yeah, I mean, I listen to Spotify quite a bit, and my
Yeah,
buddy Mike, who used to drum for a band called Hammered, uh, he listens to all that type of music on rotation 24 hours a day. I mean, that's all he listens. I
nice.
mean, so that's how he discovers a lot of different, different bands. So if
Yeah.
I have a question for something, I just have to ask him, have you heard of this band? What do you think of this? And he'll give me, honest opinion. He likes, I sent him, one of your songs. He likes your songs. I mean, he says it's quite, it's different from some of the stuff that we used to listen to in the 80s, but it
Yeah.
kind of follows that premises of that. You know what I mean? It's like the younger generation that are playing this type of music, such as yourself, are taking it a step further than what they used to. You know what I mean? You
Oh,
now have the
100%.
technology, you have, you know, just a different aspect of to bringing that music alive. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your writing process, and kind of give a breakdown of what a day in Truman's life is like when he is focused on music.
Well, usually if I'm working on something that I actually, want to do, it makes it pretty easy to focus on it. And I will hyper focus on whatever it is, writing, lyrics, riffs, stuff like that. And usually it takes me about 2 to 3 weeks to write a full song, just the lyrics. And
Mm,
usually most of that comes from a simple idea. I surf through my mind, what would be an interesting song title? What would be an interesting theme? What type of, what, you know, era of thrash are we trying to advance on? And there's a lot of opportunities there, which means there was like, I think like 10 or 12 songs that actually didn't get on our debut album because I just didn't think they were good enough. But there's a
but
lot
you're gonna
that
go
goes
back
into.
and look at them again, aren't you?
Oh, they one. I can tell you, there's a couple of them that I'm considering for the next album. Honestly, I've been thinking about rewriting, tweaking some different details, and just making it the piece of art that it should be instead of just canned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And usually, I try to take the lyrics and, like I said earlier, with my playing, try to put whoever's listening to it in that um, perspective, kind of like you're reading a book of like a memoir or whatnot. You're trying to put that person in that mindset, and convey the emotion of what, you're writing about. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the kind of same thing stands for poetry. It's that's really what music is. It's like poetry to me because it
Right.
all comes together to make a precise sound that somebody will like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole bunch of people out there that like different genres of music that come together at these festivals, and I've seen it, and it's just awesome. Like I think it's just awesome that music alone can bring 50,000 people together at a festival. I
I
just think
agree.
that's really powerful.
Right. I agree. So speaking of festivals, isn't there is there a metal festival? Because you guys are from what is it? Louisiana,
Shreveport.
Shreveport. Right. So
Yes, sir.
isn't there a festival, a metal festival in Shreveport?
I think so, but at the moment, I haven't been able to look into too many venues because, work and also daily life and trying to get this to take off. because we're
Right,
just
right.
starting out. We really only started releasing music in December of last year. We released Stalingrad, which I saw you really liked. I do appreciate
Oh, I
that.
love that
But
song.
I wanted to try and again put that person who's listening in whoever's shoes. That's
Mhm,
just who I am. If I'm going to write something, it's going to be empathetic. It's going to try to get people to understand.
mhm.
Like
Right, right.
say Psalm from our debut album. That was the writing on that was focused on like a first person point of view from like a soldier in the trenches. I tried to
Mhm,
stick to that narrative, but also I watched the new All Quiet on the Western Front like 4 times to try to get the dynamic.
mhm,
And doing that, it really allowed me to get that feeling into my music. But
mhm.
I will give my credits to the other members because I Nick's really given some really good attention to the rhythms and correcting me on some things. I'm really upset that he could be here because I told him that it was tonight, but
That's all right. I mean, it does. It doesn't mean that we can only have to do one. I mean, you guys, I can have you on the show again down the road, and hopefully
yeah.
somebody, one of the other band members or all of them will be able to, attend. But
Oh, hopefully
so let
by that
me,
time we'll at least have another
yeah,
album out and we'll be all met up.
yeah. So who's singing?
That's me.
Okay,
Dude,
okay.
I am really not great with the melodic parts of it. I sung while I was sick and sung while I was good, but I don't think I'm that great of a singer, honestly. Like I wanted to give that to Kevin. But listening to it now, I guess it sounds all right.
Well, I mean, I like like I said, Stalingrad. I love that song. I mean, I think the vocals on that are solid. You know, but you
Yeah.
guys are young. I mean,
Oh,
there's so much room
we
for improvement. You know,
yeah.
and not to say that you need a ton of improvement, but I mean, you know what I mean. I mean, eventually, I mean, you
Oh,
guys will
we can
find ways
always
to get
improve on
better.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
We can always improve. It's like take artists for example. They spend years advancing on what they've done in the past. Same thing with music.
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
always advance on what you've done. You don't have to do the same thing. There's
Right,
always room to
right.
improve.
Hmm. I agree. So, what is in your playlist right now that you listen to?
Um, at the moment, most of it is Megadeth, like She Wolf, Five Magics. I think it's something about Polaris. I think it's on Rust in Peace, and then there's Hangar 18. Then there's Creeping Death, Summer Ride the Lightning. Couple of our songs, a lot of Thorns. Some of Carnatura. I think that's about it at the moment.
So, I'm gonna make a suggestion for you to kind of expand your listening ears. Um, I am going to suggest there's a band out there to give you a little bit of context, and it's not necessarily thrash, but I'm sure you probably heard of
Yeah,
them. But the the lyrical aspect of the whole premises of
yeah,
Dream Theater. Okay, um, back in the day, I saw them when they were just starting out, and they're huge now. They have
yeah,
a new album out called Parasomnia, and it's kind of like it's in my wheelhouse as haunted and kind of haunting lyrics
yeah.
and paranormal aspect of it. You know what I mean? So I really like that album, but they have a song back in the day in the '90s called uh, what was it? It was off the album Images and Words and Pull Me Under, and that's a really heavy song. So look that
Yeah.
up, and it's one of those things where taken a little bit of a look into some of the other music that isn't necessarily just thrash, but
Yeah.
or metal in that aspect might actually kind of pique your interest in your writing skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like expanding your brain. You like classical music. I took music theory in high school. I
Oh, I wish I
appreciated
would have.
opera. I appreciated classical. I appreciated everything. When
Well,
my teacher
classicals.
at that time, when my teacher said at that time, I was the only metalhead in the class. It was only like 8 of us,
Well,
and I was the only one to wear a leather jacket. And they looked at me like I was, some, degenerate. But anyways, so the teacher asked, find me a song with AB notes, blah 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 blah, and bring it in. Well, at that time in the '80s, it was bring in an LP, an album, you know,
yeah.
and a vinyl, and everybody was bringing in Billy Joel and Queen and some other
Oh
stuff, and
Lord, I do
classic,
love me some Queen and
and so I was kind of like, okay, so I brought in Metallica, Fade to Black,
oh
and
that is
everybody
an
looked at
awesome
me
choice. I
and the teacher had me put it on, and he listened to it. The whole class listened to it, and he said I nailed it. Yeah, I knew
nice.
what the assignment was, and I was just like, so. The one thing I remember him saying to me was, in thrash metal and heavy metal like Metallica, Megadeth, or even Slayer, there's so
Yeah.
many different classical overtones to that type of music. I mean, if you
Oh,
picture
100%.
like Sebastian Bach playing a Slayer song now, and it would sound like a masterpiece.
Oh, it
You know what I
would.
mean? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, I mean that's part of why I like thrash music the way I did, because I studied classical, I studied opera, I studied the whole theory of music, and it was so fascinating.
Yeah.
But so I
I
like
studied.
I like a lot of different things. So it's like expanding your your knowledge of music in that sense. I mean, you're young, so you've got your whole life ahead of you, and
Yeah.
kudos to you, because mine is 3/4 done. I've lived it,
I'm
and
just glad I did it. I'm glad that I had the courage to do it because I am not like a big crowd person, but I'm getting there. I'm
right,
kind of
right.
sad that
It,
we
it
haven't
it
been
it
able to.
takes time, right? It takes time. I mean, it's not something that's happens. It just happens overnight.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just music in general is, and to me, is an international language, man. I mean, no matter if it's metal, classical, opera, you know, rap music. I mean, I would
Yeah.
consider the only rap music I really ever listened to was Beastie Boys.
I've heard of them. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Okay, so if you went through that rap phase and you can appreciate the heaviness of some of the music you listen to now,
Yeah.
Beastie Boys album License to Ill, you need to look that up. And it's got a couple heavy songs. It's got a song on there called "Don't Sleep Till Brooklyn," which is one of my favorites, and it's got Kerry King from Slayer playing guitar on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
That's sick.
anybody that's listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, because it was just one of those things where it just fit. Same with
Yeah.
Anthrax and Public Enemy. You know, yeah. I mean, there's that whole era back in the day when they were trying to integrate some of that stuff. It kind of
Yeah.
worked, but then I think you had the birth of like Limp Bizkit after that, and
Yeah,
there's
like
some
the
other
grunge
bands.
era, like Nirvana,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Hey, and I grew up, when back in the early '90s when I was in my 20s. I
Oh, I do
basically I
love me
when
some Nirvana. They were good, and
I
Nevermind was
that is
awesome.
that and to being appreciative, being appreciative of all music, even though I'm not a fan of Nirvana, never was, except for one song, and that quickly faded. But I am a huge fan of Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a
Soundgarden?
very Soundgarden too, even Audio Slave. I mean, there
Yeah.
were so many bands, back then, like Alice in Chains, the whole the way the lyrics were wrote and Jerry Cantrell on guitar was
Yeah.
phenomenal, and he still is. And their new lead singer sounds similar to Lane Staley, but you know that it's not him. But he brings his own
His own
charisma
style,
to
you
it.
know.
Yeah, and his own
Yeah.
style, but it's still good and it's very good. And um, so yeah, I
I
mean,
think
I just
I honestly think as long as you can, tweak a sound to what you think, you know, your image, what you want your image to be, but also what you think people will like, as long as you
mhm,
can perfect the balance between those two and you can pinpoint the sound that you want, it should come out good, at least to you and the
right,
people that are, your fans.
hmm right, and I think that the one thing that I remember too is when I used to write lyrics is, and even um, doing speaking events and all that. If I had the opportunity to influence somebody to think think something like this is going to help me, or it's an influence or something like that, a positive influence. I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of look at that. If I've changed the way you look at things in a positive way, then I've done something right. You know what I mean? So when
Yeah.
they hear your song, like I heard your song Stalingrad, and it brought me way back to when I was young and I was listening to Exodus and Dark Angel and Death Angel and all that. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, I
and
do really appreciate that
that is
somebody actually
credit that is
likes.
credit to that song and to you guys. And
I think we did
so
really good for just starting out. I think we did pretty good. I think the public took it
I
well.
agree.
The people that like our music, it had a pretty good reception when we released it. Same with,
Yeah.
well, maybe not the instrumental single that we released after Stalingrad, but I think when we released our debut album, our I guess that really kind of brought us a little more, notice, and actually, you know, allowed people to know that we existed. It didn't like shoot us off the charts or nothing, but it brought us, it put our foot in the door. And that's an opportunity that I do not plan on taking for granted because I believe music and having the gift and being able to bring people together to make music and listen to music and support artists. I just think it's beautiful. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and I really do think it's a privilege. And
Right.
I really don't want to take it for granted like some people have. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to make millions. I just want people to enjoy music.
Right. And that and you and holding on to that concept and not letting
Yeah.
go of that concept, because the moment you let go of that concept and when you dip your toes into popularity or being famous or getting noticed or something like that, I mean, you dip your
Yeah.
toes into that kind of and you start to forget why you started it. There's so many different
Exactly.
bands over the years that forgot that, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
name names, but there's a lot of people that know who they are. And
Yep.
I I appreciate musicians. I've met quite a few known musicians, and some of them have been super cool, and
Yeah.
some of them just were not so cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
But you could
always.
you could tell that there's those people, those ones that are kind of set in their ways, or they've been doing it for a long time and they're kind of
Yeah.
just kind of worn out. And I get
Yeah.
it. Hey, it is what it is. But
Yeah. It
so
happens.
who would you besides Kirk Hammett, who would you say as a vocalist would be somebody that is an influence to you?
Um, I want to say, who's the lead singer of Slayer? Oh dear Lord. Oh, I
Tom
forget
Araya.
his name. Yeah, him.
Tom
But
Araya.
yeah, he's one of my influences. I try to get that type of, you know, growl in my voice. And with as deep as a voice that I have, surprisingly enough, I'm actually capable of doing that than more, melodic stuff. And I think,
Right.
it pertains to the genre, it makes our music what it is. And
Hmm.
I think
I agree.
my influences, I think they did a pretty good job on what they did. And it gave me a sort of sense of what I could do, but also what I knew I needed to work on. And I think that'll always be a thing that I'll think about, is always what I need to tweak. I want to perfect this while I've got the
Hmm.
chance.
Right. Right. You're young. You've got a lot of time ahead of you, so it's just one of those things that you focus on, and like the vocal range, and um,
Yeah.
so I seriously, when I heard a couple of your songs, and I didn't realize that you guys had just started, because it sounded like you guys had been around for a while. But I mean, there's other bands that I've contacted and been in contact with that have been around for some years, and
Yeah.
um, it's just it's cool to see a younger bunch of guys, kids that are taking this serious enough to put out some really good music. And
Yeah.
um,
Well, I don't
nowadays,
say that I don't want to say that we had a lot of time to work on what we wanted to do, but I can say that we had at least a year to try and, see where our strengths were and what we could work on. And I think that really helped in our writing process and also getting the album out. You know,
right,
it made it a little easier.
right. Talk a little bit about your record label.
Right now we are putting out our music through my record label through DistroKid at the moment. But in due time, I do hope that I can actually start our supposed record label as an actual record label. If I get enough money and we're able to actually do that and produce our own music and also help others out. You know,
Right, right, right. So,
it.
talk a little bit about your drummer. Where'd you find him?
I originally met him in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was down there with my family for vacation. Well, it was just me, my mom, and my sister because my dad wasn't the greatest person. I'll just say that. But I met him at a restaurant and we got to talking and um, basically he gave me his uh, PlayStation account and whatnot, and we got to talking and we became pretty good friends. And when I wanted to start this band, I really knew that he would want to do it because I'd asked him before, if I start a band, would you join? And he's always been, yeah, I mean, you're my friend. I'm going to support you, I'm going to do what I can. And when I did, he was there, he's been an awesome friend of mine for the past 6 years. He's watched me go from beginner guitarist to us putting music out, and
Hmm.
it's really been awesome.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean nowadays, I mean it's just I've met quite a few different musicians over the years that I've played with and that I've sang with and this and that, and
Yeah.
um, that whole camaraderie and friendship, it does me a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean I think that you know as time goes on, there's been so many different bands that have great roots and great stories of how they meet and all this other stuff, and then
Yeah.
they kind of let fame take over, and then now they're not friends, and it's sad because you really want
Yeah.
them to win. You want those bands that you love to stay
To
together
keep
and win,
going and see the
keep
same
going,
image
and you
that you
keep,
do.
yep, and keep making music. But it's sad. I mean, there's been quite a few bands over the years that I've loved that I would always think that they were going to be around, or for quite a long time, and then years
Yeah.
later they're done, and it's just like, gosh.
Well,
And
I kind of
you
thought.
you kind of want to be a I kind of want to be a like their psychiatrist and say, what the hell is wrong with you? Why can't you just get along? You know.
I can
So
agree with that one. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I can agree with that. I've heard that Megadeth is on their farewell tour, and it's surprising because they've been around for 40 plus years, and
right. And I
after this
love
record,
Megadeth.
there's nothing that's coming out anymore. And I
Right.
really am like, oh Lord, what am I gonna do now?
I think, but I think it's time. I think it's time. I think Dave Mustaine put in the time. He
Oh
paid
yeah,
his
hundred
dues
percent.
over and over again, and kudos to him. I love Dave. I think he's
He's been through
a
hell,
good musician.
and I
Yeah,
I
and I
think he
think that
deserves it.
yeah, I think that for him to go out on a high note and like with this last album,
Yeah,
and I think that it's his choice, and I think that he'll be missed, and Megadeth will be
oh of
missed,
course.
but it's just we're not getting any younger, and
Yeah,
and
time goes on.
I wish him the best in whatever else he does, after
Oh,
Megadeth.
100%. He's
Still hope that he would still be involved in projects or whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there's so many bands, and when you're talking about bands that aren't around anymore, there's a
yeah,
band that was basically right in my backyard, um, and I was just talking to him with my friend Mike, the
yeah.
drummer of Hammered, and he said that he used to live down the street from these guys and listened and would hear their music. Um, the band was called Numbskull, and
Nice. It's a nice name.
it's I think they had two albums, and they were on a major record label. But I mean, it was just I
Nice.
remember listening and wearing that tape out, and it was just and I loved it, and then
Yeah,
I just asked him the other day. I said, have you seen any of those guys around, because they still live in the area of
yeah,
where we live, and
yeah,
he said a couple of years ago he ran into, I think, one of the guitar players, and it's
yeah,
just I think he wanted to try to get something, some of the group back, and maybe to try something new, but one of them had to
yeah,
switch because he couldn't do it anymore, and it was just, but there again, for the albums that I did have from Numbskull, I loved
yeah,
and I listened to religiously, and
yeah,
but it happens, I mean, great bands, you think, God, these guys are really great, and then they're gone after a year or two,
yeah.
for whatever reason. But there's so many different bands. I mean, seriously, I mean, you talked about your playlist, and I could probably give you 50 different bands right now that would probably blow your doors off.
Oh,
And
probably.
I
I've heard a lot of newer
I can
bands, and
give
it
you a
really has.
list, and I get this list from my friend Mike, and I'm just like, I've never heard of these guys, and but that's
Yeah,
all he does every day is cycle through bands constantly. And I
yeah.
mean, I'm talking like when he goes through his list on Spotify, he's got thousands of different bands that are
Jesus
out there.
Christ.
Yeah, and that's not a joke. He had to redo his list and had to get rid of some because it was too much. And I just
Yeah,
yeah. And so, talking about, thrash metal music, and I was, I like death metal, but I was never really into a whole lot of death metal. I mean, I
yeah,
listened to some of it, but there were bands like Obituary that I used to listen to.
yeah.
Coroner was a good one. I mean, I can name a bunch of 80s bands that were, Rigor Mortis was another one. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, there were so many
Stuff like
bands that,
Meshuggah, Pantera, a few bands like that, like the groove metal. That's also something that I've been
right, right,
into, and
right.
I think it's
Listen
awesome.
to death. Yeah, listen to death metal. Listen to 6 Feet Under, or listen to Entombed. I
Oh,
mean, those were from the early '90s, and
yeah,
Entombed is they're crazy. I mean that group's pretty good, but um, yeah. So I mean, there's so many different bands that I could list that I don't listen to anymore because I don't I have different tastes.
The
You know, I
spark has
mean,
gone, you know.
it kind of is, but my friend isn't. His spark is constant, and it's like I wish I
Oh
could
yeah,
have some of that. But I am, but by doing this and by talking to you guys and other bands, you
yeah,
know, it's kind of given me a new a resurgence of music, you know, an appreciation of that aspect
yeah,
because I want to talk to people and you know like the bands I have coming up. I want to be able to talk to these people and I want to be able to find out what their thoughts are on some of the music out there now and talk about their music
yeah,
and their goals and this and that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because when you listen to all that music and then you're in a band, but you listen to all that music, you
yeah,
never really know, you know, who they are. It's just
yeah,
guys on an album cover. You know what I mean? And so
yeah,
that's why I'm kind of doing what I do now. And you know, I have other podcasts that I do, but
yeah.
um, you know, with you
Well, I really
guys,
do appreciate the opportunity. I really wasn't expecting it. I do appreciate it.
yeah.
It was really a
When
surprise
I
when I went and looked, and it was like, oh Lord. Uh,
yeah
hey,
have
Nick.
or when I have you know I get led to do certain things and excuse me and I you know like I had messaged when we were messaging back and forth and I was saying that I have you know I do paranormal stuff and I have
Yeah,
you know started out with a paranormal podcast and you know I've interviewed a lot of cool people but I've also got
yeah,
some people their first start and now they're you know they go to paracons and they have their own merch and they have their you know and that
yeah,
wasn't my intention. I just wanted to talk to that person because I just thought it would be cool to talk to that person just like I'm talking to you
yeah,
you know because I like your music and
yeah,
you know it would have been the same thing with me if you know I was interviewing somebody else but it's just the fact that you know when I hear your music and I just something led me to interview you. So I
yeah,
figure, hey, if this is gonna kind of help you guys a little bit, maybe get you a little bit more fanfare, more noticeable, you know,
yeah.
um, you know,
Well,
like
I really
with
want to get out
songs
there
and this and that, you know,
and give people an actual show that they can come to and not have to spend $100, $200. Like, I want to keep our ticket prices, if we have them on tours or whatnot. I really do want to keep them cheaper, and also give people more of an experience, allow them to actually you know enjoy the music rather than be worried about, if I spend this money and go to this concert, is it going to break me. I want to
right,
allow people to have a fun experience without
hmm
taking their money, basically.
right,
And
right, right,
I've always tried to stick to that motive in whatever I've done. At one point I was selling drawings of mine. At another point I was working on four wheelers for people. There's been a lot that I tried to, if I do it and I'm selling something or I'm providing a service, I try to keep it cheap and make it affordable for people. And
right,
that's
right.
why I wanted to, go the independent label route and allow us to actually, you know, do this ourselves
Control
rather
some of
than
that.
having a manager telling us what we can and can't do, or, whatever. Give us that flexibility to be able to give people an actual show.
Right. You know, back in the day, that really wasn't a thought process that I know of by any young musicians when I was a kid. You know,
They
it
just,
was
at that point, I think they were just
they
interested.
wanted a record deal and they wanted to get famous and they wanted the chicks, they wanted this, they wanted that,
There you go.
you know,
Yep.
and that's just music in general, not just
Yeah.
hair bands. Same thing. You know, they
Yeah.
were overnight sensations. You know, and
Kiss.
look at Poison, look at Motley Crue. You know, I mean, there's so
Motley
many different
Crue,
bands out there that
Zeppelin, Sabbath, stuff like that. That was all.
Zeppelin's in my wheelhouse. I mean that Zeppelin's fourth album came out the year I was born, and that
Nice.
uh, Stairway to Heaven was came out the same month I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen Robert Plant in concert. I love Robert Plant, Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
That's my band. You know what I mean? So in
Yeah.
that aspect of what all they went through and how long they were together and this and that, so I can appreciate,
Yeah. To
where
try and give you
Robert
that
Plant's
perspective,
solo
you know.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But nowadays, I mean, some of these kids, I think they want to, like you guys, you want to do it yourself. You don't want somebody
Yeah.
else to control you
Yeah.
and you can't do this, you can't do that. Being independent might be harder said than done, but as long as you put your nose to the grindstone and you
You
know
know, I did think about that, but also I thought it would be better for the band as a whole because we could actually, do what we wanted and actually not let, you know, something, making money or, this record deal or that record deal or playing this show, just take us away
mhm,
from, the value of what we're doing. We're
right, right,
providing
right.
people good music and trying our best at it. It may still sound crappy. We're basically three idiots trying to stay in time and on tune.
I
So,
think that's been the motive for a lot of these young kids that are in a band. We're just a bunch of small, young idiots who trying to make music. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's funny if you if you say it out loud, it's kind of funny. But I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
that it's not insulting. It's just
Yeah,
kind of
it's
true, you know.
basically just making a joke.
But yeah, but well, I want to thank you for coming on. Usually I
Yeah, I
keep my
appreciate the opportunity.
episodes
Thank
to
you.
you know about 45 to 50 minutes or whatever. But
Yeah.
no, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I do hope to hear more music from you guys. Um,
We plan on it.
keep me on your list, and let me know. Keep in touch.
Yeah.
You guys. I want to see how you guys are rolling it out and doing
At
and
one point,
whatnot.
I think you may be able to speak to Nick himself because he does have our TikTok page access to it as well. So I think he'll
Okay.
also speak to you when he gets a chance.
Yeah.
Kevin, on the
Yeah.
other hand, that one's a little harder. He's in Puerto Rico still.
Yeah. Okay. So
It's an
yeah.
interesting process because we're sending everything over email, and I have to mix it on a crappy PC
No.
without a bass player.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to tell. Trust me. I mean, seriously, I wouldn't be able to tell.
Oh,
It sounded like
I've
you guys
tweaked
were in
it.
the studio.
Oh
So
Lord, I wish I had an actual studio. I hope to, at one point, get like an apartment that the three of us can turn into, basically like an HQ. Have a studio, have a place for us to stay.
that's what they used to
If
do
we're gonna,
back in the day.
yeah,
They would all
Metallica
three of
with
them
the
pitch in, be
Metallica
working
mentioned
day
back in.
jobs, and they'd be working day jobs, and then at night they would be practicing and paying rent for the crappy apartment they could play music in. So
Yep.
don't give up on that dream. It's made a lot of musicians uh, famous for sticking to it and doing it that way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I want to thank you. Why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you, your music, basically?
Um, at the moment, we are on Apple Music, Spotify, should be on Amazon and Pandora. Most real, like, n- uh, I guess well-known music apps we're pretty much on. You should be able to find us. If
Anywhere you can
you,
get your podcast type thing.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, there again, I want to thank you.
Yes, sir.
And this probably next week, Wednesday, I have Kiloton on. Um, that's
I'll
going
be
to be a
sure to
great
watch it
show.
because I
Yeah,
love them
it's gonna
too.
it's yeah, it's gonna be a great show. These guys are cool. That show should also be at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. And
All right.
it'll be here. Yeah, it'll be here on Riverside FM as well as YouTube. So
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody again, and you know, it's been a great Saturday.
Yes,
So
it has. I do appreciate it. Thank you for letting me come on and tell people about the band and how we formed up and what our plans are.
yeah, hope to have you on again.
Yes, sir. I hope in the future I can come back on, or we can all come on, and we'll have our next
Yeah,
album out.
awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.